Hello, viewers of OBN Horn of Africa. This is Future Africa program, and my guest today is a Pan-Africanist, director for media and publicity at Kwame Nkrumah Ideological Institute, and he is also known for writing various articles on different African issues. And he is Kwame Gonza from Ghana. And thank you very much for joining me, Mr. Kwame, and it is my pleasure to host you.
Oh, thank you, my brother. I'm so glad that you have had this time to host me once again and give me an opportunity, to come and have this conversation on this great network, OBN. I'm really very glad, and I feel that this is a great opportunity for me and a very big chance for me to continually come here and have these conversations about our continent. So I want to greet all the viewers, and I want to thank them for supporting the channel, for all this time. They should continue, because this is a great channel, and it has gone on to become now not only an Ethiopian channel, but now it's an African channel, because now it hosts all people from the different parts of the continent. So it is really a great honor and opportunity for me. I want to thank you once again.
Just you are always volunteer whenever OBN is coming to you for interview, and that is also what we appreciate. And you are an exemplary example of our audience, and thank you very much in this regard also. Let me start with this question, Mr. Kwame. As you know, as a person who attentively follow about Ethiopia, you are always reading and listening different things about Ethiopia. You are concerned about Ethiopia, I know. And on the 29th of December 2021, the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia's House of People Representatives established one commission, that is a National Dialogue Commission. And my question is, what African experience looks like in this regard? And what is your comment about the implementation of these national dialogue?
Thank you very much, my brother Oluma. So I consider the Prime Minister Abiy actually as one of the greatest African leaders of our time. If you look at what is going on the continent, if you look at the different stands our African leaders have taken on different issues on the continent, the Prime Minister is trying to walk in. He's trying to have the same spirit that he has extended, a leave to the TPLF continuously. Okay, even under pressure that some of the revolutionaries, people who have stood up to defend Ethiopia against external aggression, and especially the American aggression that has been happening, and the Western aggression that has been happening, and sinister moves that have been, doing psychological warfare and all the information. People who have come up to protect Ethiopia, even in the Pan-African camp, you can see that certain people had been disappointed about the Prime Minister's moves, that he was able to extend a hand to the TPLF and tell them, you guys come and let's dialogue. So this is what makes him a great leader. This is what makes him someone who is able to see the future, because he's able to make unpopular decisions, but because he knows the end results. The end result for him is to be able to hold Ethiopia together, because he cannot afford to see Ethiopia break up under his watch, under his leadership. So these are the goals. And if you remember in some of our interviews, which we had in the past, I think it was last year. It was last year. We were commenting about his moves, which he's making. And I mentioned that we need to give the Prime Minister time, because I understood, the reason I said that is I understood that the Prime Minister is someone who loves the country. He loves Ethiopia. He's someone who loves Africa. And I had trust. I had complete trust in what he was doing. And I pleaded on this very channel on OBN, and I said that people need to trust the Prime Minister and what he's doing, because He's not somebody who is naive, and he's not somebody who has opened himself up to be used by foreign interests and foreign forces. So Africa, whenever it has had a chance to solve its problems, it has wanted to solve these problems with dialogue. If you remember the attack on Libya, that the African Union had come up to try to solve the problems in Libya with dialogue. The Americans and those Western aggressors, they came in and decided that everything should be bombing, and they started bombing and destroying the country. And up to today, the country has never stabilized. We are going now to almost 20 years now. We are approaching, 20 years, because the first decade has passed. The country has refused to stabilize because of this kind of approach. So the Africans, for them, understand that dialogue is very important, because at the end of the day, even after the bombs, after the fighting, these people, they always come back to the table. You can see that the United States, after failing in Afghanistan, came back to the table to try to negotiate with the Afghans in Qatar, in the Middle East. They were having different meetings to try to negotiate. So this is an African understanding that dialogue is very important for Africa and the Africans. Aggression and war is always the last resort. And if you see that Africans have pulled out their weapons to start fighting, then you know that this situation cannot be solved with dialogue. Absolutely cannot be solved with dialogue. But Africans always put dialogue first. And this is what I see that the Prime Minister has tried to do, to extend a lead, to create these commission and create lines of communication, so that the people who have grievances, they can address these grievances and these problems, this anger which they have within. He's trying to say, let us come together, let us dialogue. And this is the spirit of Africanism. This is how Africans behave. So I can only say emphatically that the Prime Minister Abe, is one of the greatest leaders of our time on this African continent. If you look at his track record, if you look at his speeches at the Organization of African Unity, his suggestions, to the African Union, to the other African heads of state, even though some of those suggestions have not been taken up, which suggestions I believe they are very good, and which suggestions I believe that if he works with us, the African civil society, our organizations like Connect Africa, Kwame Nkrumah Ideological Institute, we have Economic Fighters League in Ghana. We have all these organizations. We believe that if he works together with us, we will be able to achieve these Pan-African ideals which he mentioned at the just recently ended 35th ordinary session of the African Union.
Great. And the other thing is, there are many conflict resolution methods in the world and even in Africa, but whenever the indigenous knowledge is concerned, it is often overlooked. And what do you say about this? Because you are from the land of the great leader Kwame Nkrumah.
So you see, for a very long time, the Western world has placed itself in a position and claimed that they only have, they are the only ones who have the solution. Okay, and this is wrong. Okay, and simply because they have had control over everything in the world for the last 600 years. They have had control over the media. They have had control over everything. They have had control over our political space. For the first 300 years since the 15th century, when they arrived on the African continent, they had control over the African bodies. They had control over the African minds. They had control over the African material resources. So they had control over everything. And then in 1805, when Haiti gained independence, then Africa started changing, because Haiti fought against slavery and it won a war against France. It won a war against Spain. It won a war against Britain. The three of them, Haiti was able to beat them. And this was a nation of slaves, but they were able to beat. I can only compare it to the Battle of Adwa. What happened in the Battle of Adwa, that Ethiopia was able to defeat a well-equipped European army of Italy, okay? And Italy had the support of other countries. So after the defeat of slavery, Africans had some control now over their bodies, even though now the Europeans still had the control over the materials. And now come to 1945, the Africans, they started taking back a lot of things. They had control now over the materials and their bodies and their minds. Now, they have gone on to lose, actually. On the whole, the Western world and imperialist nations of Europe and the United States and all the Western world have gone on to lose. They have been losing dramatically, but they have portrayed a picture that they are still strong. So you can see that just the psychological warfare, they have been having a very strong hold onto the media, but Ethiopia was able to defeat them. You can see that since 2020 until last year, it was able to defeat them. And the Africans were able to come together with Ethiopia and defeat them, even though Ethiopia doesn't have the international media. You know, it doesn't have international media houses like you see BBC. So they have been having this control over the media. So that means they are able to shape the narrative. What does this mean? I'm coming to your point. The African solutions have been neglected for a very long time. They have been negated to the back, and always the white money's solutions are the ones which are put in front there. That's why you see that organizations like the UN, they give themselves veto powers. No African country has veto powers because they don't want to listen. It's racist. Actually, this is racist, but people, they don't want to say it like it is. But I want to say it like it is, that this is a racist move, that African solutions are always negated to the, to the back. They are pushed to the back. They are always neglected. But history has taught us that whenever Africans have applied their own solutions, if you're talking about reconciliation, conflict resolution, they have always worked. When Africans have taken matters into their own hands, like if you look at what happened in the Rwandan genocide, it has always worked. Rwanda has built itself without the help of the Western world, when you're talking about reconciliation. So even the governance systems on the African continent, we have enough knowledge on this continent, because like I said before, we have had civilizations that have continued on this continent for the last 6,000 years, more than 6,000 years. Europe has just entered. The people who ushered Europe into history, the world history, is Africans, because they came here to learn most of the things. So we have had continuous history for the last 6,000 years, and the evidence is Ethiopia. It is there, it has never been colonized. So the knowledge, it has the knowledge. And people like the United Nations, the Russian representative at the United Nations, and the Chinese representative at the United Nations, they pointed out clear that they believe that Ethiopia has the capacity to solve its own problems. And they stood against the interference of the Western world, the interference of the United States and the whole Western world. And they said, the Russian representative at the United Nations, they said they have confidence. He said he has confidence that Ethiopia has the capacity to solve its own problems because they have enough knowledge and understanding. And the Chinese also, they say the same thing, that they have complete confidence. The Chinese representative at the United Nations say, I have complete confidence that Ethiopia has the capacity to solve its own problems. Because these, to a certain extent, these are respectful people to Africa, and its institutions and its knowledge and its understanding, because they understand history. But because the Western world has this white supremacy, racism, and to a greater extent, arrogance and disrespect for Africa, the only way for them to learn, I think, is for us to resist. Because if someone doesn't understand dialogue, he doesn't understand reconciliation, they don't understand the sophisticated means of conflict resolution that Africa has built up for a very long time. Because we have existed on this continent for a very long time. We have never had situations whereby you have wars that continue for 10 consistent years and you have people, dying. But you have had this in Europe. People have fought to certain levels. They have 20 years of consistent war. You see? So, but Africa is not that, because of the sophisticated means of conflict resolution that indigenous to us. And this also applies to other means of other fields, like when you are talking about politics, economics, we have our ways of doing things. but these people have dominated it they have dominated our scene for a very long time. And I believe that starting the year 2020, I strongly believe that that era of domination by the Western world is over. It has come to an end. Even though they are clinging on, they are still clinging on to show that they are powerful. But that era is over, because where the world has moved now, we have moved in the era of what a political scientist called Eric Lee from China called the era of warring states. Okay, we have entered into the era of warring states. And this means that states now are going to assert themselves. Cultures are going to assert themselves. So if cultures are asserting themselves, that means the people are going to demand to solve problems in their own way. Okay, you look at the reconciliation which you talked about, the commission of reconciliation which the Prime Minister put up. The United States was saying that it can solve this problem with the military, and Ethiopia said no, and the other Africans, they resisted the United States, and Ethiopia said we will solve this through reconciliation, we will not use the military. People told the Prime Minister Abiy that use the military and crush the TPLF, and he held back, because I strongly believe this is 2011, and I said that I really don't think TPLF can stand up the Prime Minister's, military, Ethiopia's military, if he says it's going to crush them. But this man doesn't want that. He doesn't want bloodshed. You see, he wants reconciliation. This is what we have been seeing from the beginning. But the United States says they want to apply military and destroy things. And this is not what we believe in, because the country, the Federal Republic of Ethiopia, has taken many years to build up. So these guys, they want to bring their weapons and destroy everything. And this is not what we want. We want to see peaceful resolution of all our disagreements. So I believe that whether the Western world wants it or not, we are going to assert ourselves, and our solutions are going to take center stage going forward, because the world has tremendously changed.
I think you are among the people who understood Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, and
absolutely.
I'm quite sure that you are even pro Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. And what's the reason behind? By the way, you are not
actually. I'm not pro Prime Minister Abiy. The thing is, I'm pro African. Any leader who is driving in the direction of Pan-Africanism, who is driving in the direction of the welfare of the African people, who is driving in the direction of what Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was driving to, and all the other great leaders like Emperor Haile Selassie, people like Abdul Gamal Nasser, people like Sekou Touré. Any leader who's driving in that direction, Robert Sobukwe of South Africa, any leader who's driving in that direction, Lumumba, Patrice Lumumba of Congo, any leader who's driving in the direction of unifying our continent, any leader who's driving in the direction of the welfare of the African people, not their own selfishness. I believe that that leader is a good friend of mine. I'm a very good fan of such leaders, because this is what Africa needs. Where the world has arrived now, we are in the 21st century. Small nations, they will not be able to survive. Africa can only survive if it is integrated. We have to have one political government, like what the Prime Minister Abiy said. At the 35th, ordinary session of the African Union, at the speech he gave, he said, "We want an Africa. We want a politically integrated Africa." This is what Prime Minister Abiy said. We want a fully developed Africa, a politically united African government. So for me, anyone who speaks in this way, I think I am naturally attracted to them. I'm naturally their fan and a friend to them.
The other thing is the one you have mentioned now, the integration of the African continent, the African country, of course. And many hope that Africa should be integrated in all aspects. And among these elements is having common visa, having common currency are those mentioned in the top priorities. And what do you say on these? What should be done to realize the African integration in all aspects, Mr. Kwabe?
Yeah, so what is to be done actually has already been indicated. There's actually no need even for us to innovate or think about new things that what should be done. Okay, if you go and examine at the formation of the African Union, which was the Organization of African Unity in 1963, speeches were given. Some of the greatest speeches you can pull out the speech which was given by the Emperor Haile Selassie at that time, one of the greatest speeches. And then there's another speech which was given, which is considered, an excellent speech, and actually among the best speeches was given by Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Okay, if you want, you can Google that speech. You can say in Google that the speech given by Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Kwame Nkrumah's speech, 1963, Ethiopia, Addis Ababa. So that speech will come up. Nkrumah laid out the roadmap of how things should be done. There's no need for us to invent new things, to think about things and say what should be done, how should we do it, and stuff like that. There's really no need. What we need currently, we need to believe that this can be done. The United States of America was established by 13 states. 13 states, they are the ones which started the United States of America. It was not many countries. Right now, the United States is more than 50 states, but it started with only 13 states. So we have to believe on this continent that these things can be done. Now, the currency, there have been many attempts, like the African Union has spoken about these things, that it wants to establish a single currency and all these problems. But there has been a lack of urgency, one, in these activities, in this approach to these activities or these projects, which are very instrumental and important. The establishment of a single military, all these things, they are very necessary. And all of them, all the African heads of state, I believe they know the importance of these things. But to a certain level, we have interference in the functioning of the African Union by France and the United States, Israel, and all these neo-colonial, government. I mean, these neo-colonial countries which want to colonize, continue colonizing Africa, dominating it and exploiting it. So that interference is a problem. To a certain extent, I believe that the leaders understand what is supposed to be done, that we need a single currency, we need a single military on the continent, we need a single market. But Nkrumah mentioned something at the formation of the OAU in Addis Ababa, and he said that African unity is above all a political kingdom that can only be achieved by political means. This is the statement which Nkrumah made. It can only be achieved by political means. And the social and economic development of Africa will come only in the political union, not the other way around. Okay, so I would like to expand on what Nkrumah means by this. The African Union has tried to implement the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, but it has not taken stock of our industrialization. It has not, even though it has taken stock of our, you can say, economy. Like right now, Africa is moving past $3 trillion of economy combined together, which is a very good thing because that makes our economy bigger than most of the countries around the world. You know, countries like Germany, you can talk even, I think even Britain, but it's bigger than India. Our economy, if you combine it together, should be bigger than India. But can you imagine India is even summoning African countries to India-Africa Summit when our combined economy as Africans is bigger than India? So these are the things which African heads of state have to look at. So the African Union has looked at the idea that Africa has a big economy, okay, and we need to move to integrate our market. But the mistake which they are making is not to understand what Nkrumah was talking about. I will consistently consider Nkrumah as the utmost authority on African problems and African solutions because he provided all the solutions for us. Okay, and there is other great Africans, definitely, of course, like Walter Rodney, Marcus Garvey, all these guys, they gave strong solutions for us how to be able to run our affairs as Africans. But Nkrumah proffered the solutions precisely, and those solutions have continued to stand the test of time. So he said that before we establish a market or before we establish economic projects on the African continent, we should look at integrating the continent politically. First, number one. That is why he said in one of his speeches, in one of his writings in the book which he published in 1963 called Africa Must Unite, he said that seek ye first the political kingdom. Because he paraphrased a Bible verse. Okay, he said, seek ye first the political kingdom, and all the other things shall be added unto you. Seek ye first the political kingdom, and all the other things shall be added unto you. So what it means is that seek the political kingdom, understand how the political space should be organized, and then the economic and all the other social aspects of your society, they will fall in line. And he knew it. Nkrumah knew it. So the desire for us to have a single passport on the African continent, a single currency on the African continent, a single market on the African continent, a single military, a single central bank, a single foreign policy on the African continent. All these have to be behind a body which is able to enforce, because we can't have 55 states, each one doing their own things.